Hello everyone and welcome back to Destiny. The latest IGN first video was jam-packed with a ton of great information about what we can expect from Patrol, public events, adventures, lost sectors, and a bit more information about how flashpoints will bring it all together in some really awesome new ways. I'm going to be touching on these details in this video, but some of what we learned were not things that were necessarily talked about, but were shown to us in the footage, including a new potential quality of gear called prestigious gear. What is it and how do you get it? Let's jump in and break it all down. Let's start by talking about what might potentially be a new quality of gear called prestigious gear. We got a glimpse at this in a few quick seconds during the video. It was presented as a reward for completing a flashpoint. To summarize, flashpoints are going to be featured destinations that rotate week to week. When a destination is designated as the flashpoint, you will be able to find new adventures, follow treasure maps, and summon extra bosses to fight. All of these activities have their own rewards, but as you complete those activities, you will rack up completion percentage for the flashpoint. And it seems like once you reach 100% completion, you will be finally rewarded with prestigious gear. Now, the footage depicts the gear as represented with a white or almost rainbow-colored engram with dark green text. If I had to guess, this gear is going to settle somewhere in between legendary and exotic, which makes me particularly excited as it was one of the items in my wishlist video, although in my video I depicted them as red engrams, and to me they would have been the endgame gear like the heroic versions of raid or trials gear. The main concept behind the set gear that I presented was the fact that they would have sort of like a combined effect or a unified perk that would activate once you equipped all pieces of that gear. So it'll be really interesting to see what they end up doing for this designation of gear, if it is a new designation at all. Also, it will be really curious to see if there is any other ways to earn prestigious quality gear in the rest of the endgame activities. They did mention that the flashpoints were designed to give us Nightfall tier rewards, so if we think of it in a backwards manner, that might imply that the Nightfall will also be rewarding us the same prestigious gear. Either way, I'm very excited at the potential of this new gear quality, assuming it actually, again, is a new gear quality and not just some kind of weird placeholder that we're reading too much into. Hopefully that's not the case. Now, some of the other ways to increase the chances of summoning these extra flashpoint bosses is by finishing a public event quickly or by triggering the heroic version of a public event. Yes, there will be now heroic versions of public events. I think we already knew about this a little bit earlier, but now we can finally see it in action in this video. It seems like the heroic version will feature tougher enemies and perhaps even more challenging objectives. They also went over how much of a variety of new public events there will be. The one we saw in the video looked like a cross between the Extraction Cruise and the Warsat events in Destiny 1. In this new event called Cabal Excavation, we have to defeat waves of enemies while your ghost overrides a drill. The encounter looked pretty intense. It featured a giant Cabal ship shooting down at you with missiles, and even some of those destroyable turret ships that we saw during the Inverted Spire in the beta. And that wasn't even the heroic version. So public events definitely seem to be much more interesting and much more fruitful this time around. Next up, they told us more about adventures and lost sectors. They showed lost sectors and even pointed out the glyph that most of us found on Nessus during the beta. Then they proceeded to show us the entrance nearby, which sadly is blocked by extra geometry in the beta, but I was pretty surprised to see how big of an area it actually opens up to. So you'll be able to descend into these lost sectors, defeat the boss, and of course loot the treasure chest afterwards. Now, they did mention that they aim to paint these symbols where they can be seen from main roads, so of course the challenge will then be to find the entrance, and then of course the boss waiting within. Then we learned a bit more about adventures and how they will be fitting into the lineup of activities. So putting together all of the information we've learned from all of the different activities, it seems like your experience will start with the Red War campaign. It sounds like it's going to be presented as a much more linear path, and then I assume you'll be able to supplement your progression with Patrol. So if you need to level something up or just want to find some more loot, you will be able to zone into Patrol, do some public events, find some lost sectors, and maybe even take on some adventures. They were described as sort sort of bite-sized encounters taking you roughly about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. They were described as self-contained, fully voiced, and are designed to explain the story of the destination and some of the other characters of the game. That all sounds super awesome. There are also activities that you can simply start without having to load into them, and once you complete them, you'll simply resume patrol and go along your way. Aside from that, we were shown a new activity called a World Quest. These are presented to you after you complete the main campaign, and it seems like they're much larger in scale compared to perhaps some of the side quests that are in the current game right now. The one they showed us was called Oh Captain, and it called us to investigate a crashed Earth ship, which now we know is the source of the failsafe AI. And some of the objectives did involve finding recordings like what we learned about before. Now, looking at the map, I'm starting to wonder whether or not this actually is the Exodus Black. If you look at the map, it doesn't really line up. As we can see in this video, it looks like the characters are sort of facing south, coming into the Glade of Echoes, and as you can see in this map, the Exodus Black does seem to be a bit more northeast of the Glade of Echoes, so maybe there's a couple different crashed ships here on Nessus. It's hard to say. Now, some of the other smaller tidbits that they went over included the fact that Cade is going to be selling you treasure maps from week to week for the different Flashpoint destinations. This is pretty cool. They also touched on fast travel points. They mentioned that not all of the points will be available to you at first, and it seems like you'll have to discover them on your own as you sort of uncover more of the map. There will even be some high-level areas which you might have to return to later on in your progression. Overall, it looks like Patrols of Destiny 2 will be much more exciting and much more eventful than ever before, and I'm starting to get seriously excited about the amount of content it seems like we're getting on the vanilla release. Mark Noseworthy in the last Bungie podcast mentioned that they want to keep as much of the game close to the vest as possible, so most of it can be surprises for us to discover. I think they're just showing us just enough so we can get a really good sense of how much content there actually is, and it seems like with flashpoints, they're really finding clever ways to stretch out the content a little bit longer, and hopefully that will result in a game that can stay fresh and interesting for much longer after launch. Now, of course, I did just focus on the highlights. I highly recommend giving the full video a watch if you haven't already. There is a lot of really great details to pick up on, so I'll leave a link down below if you want to check that out. Anyways, let me know what your thoughts are on Destiny 2's patrol activities. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more Destiny content. And I will see you all next time.